Hey everybody, this is Daniel from Phone Arena with a video comparison between the HTC One X Plus and the Apple iPhone 5. The One X Plus is shaping to be one of Android's battleships this season, thanks to its sped-up quad-core processor and 64 GB of storage. So as always, we're pitting it against the iOS flagship Apple iPhone 5. Both handsets have sealed chassis, great LCD screens and 8 megapixel cameras, but they target different categories of users from the onset with this size gap between the two. Actually, the sealed chassis and rounded corners are the only things in common between the designs of the two phones. The One X Plus looks like a slightly convex polycarbonate body and fits very well in the palm, aiding the grip with its soft touch finish, just like its chassis twin, the One X before it. The iPhone 5 is much smaller and easier to operate with one hand, so it dares to be edgier in design with clean-cut lines made of metal and glass. It is also incredibly light for the premium materials that build it, and very thin. Both companies have made a name for themselves in designing their handsets, but these days the shapes of the chassis and the choice of materials are dictated by the obligatory huge screen any self-respecting Android high-end has to rock, and you can't really slap much premium material around a 4.7-inch screen without making the phone pretty heavy. The HTC One X Plus has a Super LCD 2 display with 1280 by 720 pixels of resolution, netting 312 ppi pixel density. At 4-inch size, the iPhone 5's in-cell Touch IPS LCD is much smaller than the 4.7-incher, and its 1136 by 640 pixels grace it with a pretty high 326 ppi. Pixel density is therefore not an issue for both screens. Text appears crisp everywhere and there are no icon jaggies. When it comes to color representation, the iPhone 5 has one of the most accurate displays around, while the One X Plus panel seems to go a tad on the undersaturated side. The iPhone 5's display is also brighter and with a very low screen reflectance, as you can see, ensuring a win in the outdoor visibility department, while the One X Plus is a tad dimmer and has higher screen reflectance, although it's still very visible outside, so you won't have problems with both screens under direct sunlight. The viewing angles seem equally good on both phones, and the contrast ratios are pretty high for the LCD screen, so overall we have two great displays on both devices. Let's have a look at how the interfaces appear on these screens. The iOS 6 interface of the iPhone 5 bets on simplicity and doesn't get much in the way of just launching apps, whereas the HTC Sense 4 Plus UI over Android Jelly Bean is a full-fledged manufacturer overlay, and it offers a very rich number of personalization options, different themes, skins, and a number of widgets you can place on your home screens. There's also, for example, swipe-like input with the stock keyboard here, and customization runs as deep as even changing the color of the trace to something else. So it's pretty versatile in terms of looks and also functionality compared to the Apple iPhone 5. The polished looks here are graphically consistent throughout the menu levels, just like in iOS, which can be set for many of the Android overlays, but that's what we have with HTC Sense here on the One X Plus. The 1.7 GHz quad-core Tegra 3 here on the HTC One X Plus can't be directly compared to the dual-core A6 chip inside the iPhone 5, except in browser benchmarks and graphics tests, where Apple's silicon scores more. A more important takeaway here is that you won't feel underpowered with either of these two, and each runs the respective interface and apps from its ecosystem without any hiccups. The phones offer 1 GB of RAM, which suits them fine, but the true multitasking advantage of Android over iOS is somewhat lost on the HTC One X Plus, as it doesn't allow more than 8 apps to run at once, closing the initial ones automatically if you launch more. A very generous 64 GB of internal storage amount awaits you here with the One X Plus, whereas a 64 GB version of the iPhone 5 will run you pretty penny, and both phones don't offer storage expansion via memory cards. Let's see how the browser mark test goes now. Alright, the iPhone 5 finished first with 180,745 points on browser mark, and the Tegra 3 Latin HTC One X Plus scored a little bit less, 177,875. So in terms of synthetic browser benchmarks, the phones are almost equal. Both stock browsers won't give you any trouble rendering pages quickly, panning around them, scrolling and zooming in. Safari on the iPhone 5 has a more limited scrolling inertia, and as you can see, compared to the Android handset, but it makes a tad more fluid impression in other navigational tasks like zooming. The browsers on the One X Plus and the iPhone 5 have this one-tap reading mode, which strips the article of its pictures and other distractions like ads. It's called the reader mode here in the iPhone 5, and read mode with the HTC One X Plus, but the result is the same. You only get crisp, clean text to read without ads or other distractions. HTC, however, has embedded full Adobe Flash support in its browser, the stock one. It also supplies Chrome, but we have the stock browser supporting Adobe Flash fully, and you can easily enable or disable it here from the drop-down menu. So if you need Flash, the option is there for you. Therefore, we have to declare the browser of the HTC One X Plus more versatile than the one on the Apple iPhone 5. Both handsets support LTE connectivity on carriers that offer such networks, and also have 42 megabits per second HSPA plus radios and a full suite of the other connectivity options, although the iPhone 5 doesn't have FM radio and NFC, and also carries a proprietary Lightning connector, whereas we have micro USB and MHL combined port here on the HTC One X Plus with USB on the go. The gallery on the One X Plus is non-discriminatory when it comes to the source of your albums. It aggregates your internal pics and videos with the albums uploaded on Facebook, Dropbox, SkyDrive, Flickr, as well as Picasa. Whereas on the iPhone 5 you have the internal media backed up with only iCloud. The music players are categorizing the songs by artists, albums and playlists, and offer clean, easy to use interfaces. The iPhone 5 has equalizer presets, which you can turn on from the settings. They're not embedded in the player's interface. Whereas the One X Plus comes with the Beats audio presets, which fire up only when you plug in a headset and up the bass and sound intensity. If you pump the music out through the loudspeakers, the ones on the iPhone 5 hold an advantage with strong and cleaner sound than the unit on the One X Plus. Apple's EarPods also provide a better sound than the in-ear headset that HTC has bundled. Video playback on the HTC phone deals with any file thrown at it, although DivX X30 clips like this one here can be run only up to 720 definition with the default player, which is unusual for high-end Android. You can also capture screenshots while playing the video, and the 720p of DivX X380 files can be easily remedied by downloading an app from the Play Store, which will play everything up to 1080. The Apple iPhone 5 video format support is more limited, but this also can be remedied with a couple of capable paid players from the App Store. As usual, iOS offers just a few camera interface options, and most of the camera decision making is left to the phone's algorithms. There are panorama and HDR options to choose from, and that's about it. But the phone is incredibly fast when stitching panoramas or taking a high dynamic range photo with consistently great results. The HTC One X Plus, on the other hand, offers plethora of settings, scene modes, color effects, which include the above-mentioned panorama and HDR photos. But as you can see, taking an HDR is much slower than with the iPhone 5. But it has plenty of customization options, including slow motion video, has a low light mode as well, macro mode, and so on and so forth, so you can really go crazy with the settings. It also combines the picture and video taking on one and the same screen. The shutter buttons are on the start screen, both of them, and all the settings are combined into one menu. Pretty handy. There's also an abundance of color effects you can apply to your pictures and video. Overall, a more versatile interface on the HTC One X Plus. When it comes to the photos from the 8 megapixel sensors, though, the iPhone 5 has the upper hand with spot-on white balance measurements, while we often have purple casts from the One X Plus. The photos from HTC's handset look over-processed, and detail often gets smeared to keep noise in check, whereas Apple's handset produces clear and natural-looking photos with low noise in most circumstances, including indoor shots. When it comes to video capture, the iPhone 5 has an even bigger advantage with its fluid 30 frames per second video and nice color representation compared to the jumpy autofocus and artifacts in videos taken with the One X Plus, especially inside where the frame count falls to the uneven 22. Overall, your choice is pretty clear-cut here. If you can't live without a larger display and the associated supersized media consumption, the HTC One X Plus offers a very good HD screen, fast processor, and copious amount of internal storage with decent battery life. If a more compact designer handset with excellent display and amazing battery life rocks your boat, or if you're really heavily invested in the iOS ecosystem, the iPhone 5 is the best iPhone created so far, so it's an easy pick. Although a 64GB version runs pretty steep if we have to compare with the One X Plus. It has one very notable advantage to HTC's phone though, and this is in photos and especially in video capture. This was a video comparison between the HTC One X Plus and the Apple iPhone 5 from Phone Arena. For more information about these and other handsets, you can visit us at phonearena.com. Thanks for watching.